Justin Gaethje is my friend. I'm going to tell him don't do that with Ilia Topuria, man. You can't do that with him.
Yeah.
He hit so hard.
Everyone's already counting Gaethje out, and we've already learned you can't do that. I don't know, I've got a sneaky suspicion that Gaethje might pull off an upset here and surprise everyone. As you know, it's a fight. It's a fist fight. It can go either way. Anyone could beat anyone.
I think it's a banging main event. Justin Gaethje was always on this card. I think the holdup kind of was, we want to see what's going on with Ilia Topuria. Would he fight Islam?
$60 million.
Right.
Ilia does Gaethje even worse, you know.
And dude, honestly, that's pretty fucking scary.
He doesn't.
I don't think
he doesn't. They're in another level.
Yeah,
I've trained with Ilia plenty since like his first UFC fight. I was calling her back then, this guy's gonna be champ. I'm telling you, he's gonna beat the brakes.
Ну и последнее, вот ты уже не раз давал понять, что Gaethje против Илии Топури это мисс-матч. Вот все-таки какой бы, не знаю, совет бы дал, может быть, Gaethje в той части, чтобы он там лучше выглядел, я не знаю, более конкурентным был бой?
Я бы ему сказал травмироваться во время подготовки, дать мне шаг, вступить в этот бой и забрать титул, и потом он со мной что подрался.
Ilia didn't simply issue a standard challenge to generate buzz. Instead, the rising contender handed down a chilling execution order for Justin Gaethje's professional run, making a statement that genuinely makes your blood run cold. This wasn't your usual pre-fight banter or heated trash talk. It felt unsettlingly deliberate, icy, and dripping with an uncomfortable level of certainty. Staring down the UFC's ultimate purveyor of violence, a warrior famous for his capacity to both inflict and endure immense suffering, the champion declared something profoundly disturbing, that his opponent wouldn't even register the consciousness-stealing strike. Contemplate the sheer savagery of that guarantee for a moment. Whenever the veteran finally emerges from whatever dark abyss he gets sent into, the championship will belong to another, the stadium seats will be deserted, and his glory days will have abruptly slammed shut forever. We are looking at a blood oath of absolute destruction on a global platform, not just a promotional tactic to boost buy rates. The combat sports community is completely captivated because the reigning kingpin isn't merely hunting for another notch on his belt. He aims to violently close the book on a legendary run and send an icon into permanent retirement.
Going to be Ilia Topuria versus Justin Gaethje for the lightweight title. A unification bout, of course. Gaethje won that belt back on January 24th. Ilia is the man. He won that belt in June of last year, and he's coming back to fight in the main event of the White House card. So it's Spain/Georgia versus the United States on June 14th. That's the main event. The co-main event.
Jorge Masvidal is refusing to sugarcoat his prediction for what goes down when these combatants violently clash inside the steel cage. Since Gamebred intimately understands the mechanics of brutality, the masses tune in closely when he shares his perspective. Having observed the reigning title holder hone his craft in the training room since his promotional debut, the Miami native possesses first-hand knowledge of the terrifying damage this man can consistently unleash. Anyone willing to listen is receiving a stark advisory from the veteran that we aren't about to witness a grueling back-and-forth thriller demanding tricky judges' scorecards. He projects with unflinching certainty that the challenger will suffer a fate significantly more grotesque than even the harshest critics are anticipating right now. From his vantage point, this collision serves as the ultimate swan song for mixed martial arts' ultimate human punching bag, a warrior renowned for shrugging off catastrophic damage. The moment that inescapable, flawless right hand lands, which the seasoned veteran views as a guaranteed eventuality rather than a mere possibility, it will plunge the recipient into a career-snapping darkness from which no athlete ever truly recovers. He envisions a life-changing mauling rapidly approaching, ticking down the remaining minutes until they finally meet under the bright lights.
Ilia Topuria on the White House. Has to be. Has to be. No other option.
Hell yeah.
Let's go. Walking out of the Oval Office, into the cage, wearing the flag.
Entertaining.
I think we're going to main event it. I think we'll be the main event.
Boom.
let's go. Once in a lifetime.
I'm totally guessing throwing shit against the wall right now.
Yeah. Universe.
But I mean, what else?
You know what I think will probably happen? You know what I think will probably happen?
Let's see it.
I think there'll be headline. You'll be one of them so that they can say, like, the man who's never had a bad fight, definitely here. So that's a draw. Yeah. And then they put whatever else on there. So I think co-main event. I think for sure.
Co-main? Whose main?
I don't know. I think it'll be a huge, I think it'll be big name thing.
McGregor's been tossed around.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
For that fight.
Yeah, I know it's past the time, but name-wise, I think think that
If
is.
it's McGregor, then McGregor's going to fight me, and we'll be main event. Anyway.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Never had a bad fight. Okay.
Yeah, it would be if he didn't come back, they would strip him. I'd become the undisputed, and then McGregor gets to fight whoever he wants. So I guess that would be an option.
Examine the utterly ruinous path of destruction the title holder carved on his ascent to the throne, as it perfectly illustrates the terrifying scope of his lethal abilities. He refused to let Alexander Volkanovski drag him into a razor-thin judge's verdict, choosing instead to violently terminate a legendary featherweight dynasty in a single evening. Rather than marginally outclassing Max Holloway across 5 rounds, he shattered a legendary jawline that had miraculously survived the division's heaviest artillery for over a decade. Currently, the overarching sentiment among active roster members, the athletes who genuinely comprehend the elite nuances of cage fighting, is heavily favoring what appears to be an inescapable conclusion. Sugar Sean O'Malley is actively labeling the young phenom an all-time great in the making, pointing out that rendering 3 enshrined superstars unconscious in consecutive appearances is a feat entirely unprecedented in modern competition. The human highlight reel stands as the subsequent target on this murderous itinerary, just another iconic figure marked for a brutal nap. The unstoppable force this champion drags into the enclosure resembles a runaway locomotive, obliterating everything in its path, and absolutely zero competitors currently possess the blueprint to either halt its trajectory or even slightly diminish its terrifying momentum.
2 days ago, I got a call, and they said, "You're definitely not fighting on the White House card." So I was like,
Wow, really?
Okay.
And then yesterday, I got a call, and they said, "You might hear something. You might be on the White House card." And I was like, how are you going to go complete 180 turn on me? And then today I found out that I was on it. I didn't know if I was main event.
Daniel Cormier, an all-time great boasting elite analytical vision, recently issued a direct advisory to his close friend, delivering a message that resonates more like a frantic survival protocol than standard tactical guidance. After meticulously reviewing the footage, the former double champ recognized the genuinely alarming swiftness of the champion's phase transitions and his supernatural ability to string together strikes that offer foes absolutely zero processing time. He drew attention to a deeply unsettling sequence, detailing how the Spanish-Georgian phenom blasted Charles Oliveira thrice before gravity could even pull the Brazilian to the canvas, almost as if the fists were flying while the descent had barely commenced. Once a victim's frame finally plummets to the mat, their awareness has already been forcefully deleted and the contest is thoroughly concluded. DC is explicitly urging his buddy to abandon his beloved habit of carelessly swapping leather in the dead center of the octagon, warning that this particular adversary defies conventional norms. A single lapse in judgment, one chaotic firefight where the challenger decides to plant his feet inside the danger zone, will result in a catastrophic loss of consciousness from which his professional standing may never genuinely bounce back.
Especially with how crazy this game is, how big of a fan I am, how many unpredictable things have happened. I can absolutely knock Ilia Topuria out on the White House lawn.
How do you know that?
Because I know how crazy this game is. I know the power I possess. I know the skill that I have.
He
I know
possesses
how
a lot of power.
Of
too.
course, he could knock me out also,
Right.
but there's no way to find out, and I also will. I just want the chance.
You
know,
want
that's
him.
all. Of course.
That's right.
Yeah, he's the champion. If I could do it, it will be the best script. Then I will believe this is all simulation. 100%, because that would be crazy.
The staggering skill disparity between these two combatants genuinely gives elite analysts insomnia as they endlessly ruminate over how the challenger might potentially decipher this complex riddle. Kamaru Usman alongside Henry Cejudo, a duo possessing a masterful grasp of advanced cage mechanics, dissected the impending clash and concluded that the veteran is marching toward an entirely unprecedented breed of predator. Presenting a stockier, tightly coiled physique compared to the usual lightweight ensemble, the reigning kingpin operates with a sophisticated finesse that most 155-pounders fundamentally lack the capacity to comprehend. Rather than blindly launching power strikes and praying for a connection like a standard brawler, he commands the overall tempo with frighteningly clinical exactness, deciding exactly where the action unfolds and precisely when the violence erupts. Should the challenger attempt to drag his foe into his signature muddy trench warfare, relying on the chaotic brawling mechanics that forged his legendary status, he will likely find himself violently whiffing at shadows right before a flawlessly executed countermeasure permanently glues him to the canvas, leaving him staring blindly at the rafters while trying to process his sudden demise.
But you can't just completely count Justin Gaethje out, right? Like, he's still got some kind of shot
I mean, he's got nothing to lose. He could look at it as an opportunity where he's got nothing to lose, right? Like, you can't lose any worse than Max and Charles did. So, like, he can go out there and potentially catch Ilia.
So I would say, because Justin's so good at like a dirty style of striking, it's like a dirty boxing, but kickboxing, whatever you want to call it, it throws good strikers off. Like, look at his fight with Rafael Fiziev. Rafael Fiziev is a very clean technical striker. You look at his fight with Rufi, it's a beautiful fight. It's a beautiful striking fight. You look at his fight with Bahamundos, beautiful striking fight. You look at his fights with Justin Gaethje and you're like, that's just an ugly slugfest, but that's because Justin Gaethje is able to make you fall into his fight. It may look ugly to you, but that's how Justin wants to fight. And if he was able to do that with Rafael Fiziev, I think he could possibly do it with Ilia as well. So I think the fight might be closer than people expect, is the way I would put it.
Our man Sarukan aggressively labeled this particular booking a massive squandering of everyone's energy, completely abandoning any pretense of politeness in his scathing critique. Beyond merely predicting an outcome, he actively discarded the veteran's status as a viable danger, essentially arguing that the challenger has absolutely no business stepping through those cage doors. Having reiterated this stance across multiple media appearances, the elite contender insists the aging brawler lacks any conceivable avenue to overcome the razor-sharp boxing mechanics the champion wields. He sincerely suspects the promotion is merely treading water, artificially delaying the inescapable collision between himself and the undisputed Kingpin, which he deems the sole matchup carrying actual competitive weight. In his mind, the current title challenger operates as nothing more than a ceremonial offering, wandering blindly toward a devastating finish that any rational observer can spot brewing from miles away. It stands as an incredibly savage, borderline insulting evaluation from a premier lightweight who views the upcoming championship bout as a completely predetermined affair, thoroughly resolved before the referee ever signals the opening action.
Love this. A lot of people are talking about in the build-up, they're never going to have a US fighter lose in the main event. Yeah, they are. Justin Gaethje's going to lose to Ilia Topuria in the main event in the White House. If he pulls it off, it'll be cinema, okay? And I'll assume that the rig is in. And Topuria has been paid $10 million to make the US look good on the world stage. Because Gaethje, he's the All-American. He's red, white, he bleeds red, white, and blue, brother. You know what I mean? He's going to be there. He's the only American that's even in conversations to ever be in a title fight. Unless they did Yan O'Malley too. Which people would still complain about, by the way. But it's the only other way they could have a US fighter in a title fight. Jones was never coming back. But Topuria Gaethje's a sick fight. Amazing fight. Love it. I think it's great as the main event of this White House card. But we could have done with a stronger undercard. And that's where I think the improvements are to be made. But Topuria should win this one.
Demetrius Johnson, universally celebrated as one of the most brilliant tactical minds to ever grace the sport, envisions a remarkably bleak finale for the beloved American brawler, and his technical foresight commands immense respect. The legendary flyweight isolated a crucial element that everyday viewers routinely ignore, emphasizing the champion's terrifying knack for scrambling defensive radars by ruthlessly brutalizing the midsection. Recent appearances have exposed the challenger's depreciating durability, revealing cracks in his armor that elite adversaries are primed to shatter, especially when confronting a formidable grappler who simultaneously packs thermonuclear heat in his fists. Should the reigning Kingpin begin sinking those trademark venomous hooks into the right side of the ribcage before firing his devastating signature looper over the top, separating his foe from his senses transforms from a mere hypothetical scenario into an undeniable scientific absolute.
Two mates in the main event, Ilia versus Justin. Ilia did say he was going to come back around this time, so June, perfect for him. And obviously Justin Gaethje said himself when he was fighting me, he wanted to beat me and then go on to fight on the White House, and he's done it. You know what I mean? That's off to him. He said he was going to do that. That's a scrap. You know what I mean? They're going to come out and they're going to try and take each other's heads off, but everyone's already counting Gaethje out, and we've already learned you can't do that. I don't know, I've got a sneaky suspicion that Gaethje might pull off an upset here and surprise everyone. As you know, it's a fight. It's a fist fight. It can go either way. Anyone could beat anyone. In the White House, he's probably going to have a little bit more motivation to go out there and win because it's in front of his presidents in his home country. We'll have to see how that one plays out. because obviously it's big implications for the rest of the division. I'm obviously going to be watching that. I'll have my eye on that, but I'm going to be focused on whoever I get to fight next.
Amidst the overwhelming skepticism, a faint beacon of optimism exists for the massive underdog, emerging from the incredibly surprising perspective of Rafael Fiziev. Having personally absorbed the challenger's most ferocious artillery and survived the ordeal, the striking specialist suggests that plunging the contest into pure, unadulterated anarchy serves as the veteran's sole lifeline. Pulling from his own agonizing encounter, he detailed the American's bizarre talent for mutating a beautifully orchestrated, highly technical martial arts display into a grotesque close-quarters street fight where pristine mechanics instantly evaporate. Having weaponized this exact strategy to completely dismantle Fiziev's pristine striking flow, forcing a brutal battle of attrition, there remains a marginal possibility he might successfully drag the reigning kingpin into the exact same muddy waters, pushing the champion out of his clinical rhythm and inciting a wild firefight where luck plays a massive factor, slightly tips the scales back toward the gritty veteran. However, attempting to initiate that specific brand of pandemonium against a phenom wielding such terrifying accuracy is the functional equivalent of engaging in Russian roulette with 0 empty chambers remaining in the cylinder.
I enjoyed the fight. You know, as far as technique, it was more of like kind of a bar type fight. But I mean, Gaethje dropped him like so many times. Yeah, it was crazy.
And
I enjoyed watching that fight. That was really good.
I think Ilia does Gaethje even worse, you know.
And dude, honestly, that's scary.
He doesn't.
I don't think
he doesn't. They're at another level.
Yeah,
I've trained with Ilia plenty since like his first UFC fight. I was calling it back then. This guy's gonna be champ. I'm telling you, he's gonna beat the brakes. He retires Homer Simpson that day in the cage. He'll never come back into fighting that dude.
I mean,
Homer Simpson's, you know, he's not walking that out.
The implications attached to this violent collision extend far past the mere trading of a golden strap or the rewriting of promotional records. The grandeur of the designated venue heavily amplifies the gravity of the encounter, as the highly touted Washington-based spectacle has saturated the combatants in a profound sense of national pride and historical weight. For the legendary challenger, making the walk before the nation's chief executive while competing on domestic soil acts as the supreme catalyst, offering an emotional peak that transcends standard athletic achievement. He characterized receiving the official bout confirmation as an overwhelmingly powerful experience, confessing that the gravity of the booking nearly brought him to weeping upon initial discovery. He is desperately hunting for the ultimate fairy tale conclusion to his heavily romanticized tenure, a grueling journey characterized by bloody slugfests and endless post-fight checks, by finally seizing undisputed supremacy while standing firmly upon the most celebrated territory his homeland has to offer.
Is it going to be a situation where they come to the center ring like Gaethje and Holloway and just throw level?
Just go.
Justin Gaethje is my friend. I'm going to tell him don't do that with Ilia Topuria, man. You can't do that with him.
Yeah.
He hit so hard. When him and Charles Oliveira were fighting, by the time Charles Oliveira hit the ground, he was already sleeping, man. Like Ilia hit him 2 to 3 times on the way down. So like before he even hit the ground, Ilia hit him with the right hand. By the time Charles is like knocked out and falling backwards, Ilia done hit him with an uppercut. He hit him with another right hand. And then some guys actually, you fall down, they do like that. The referee like, yeah.
The pathway leading to the materialization of this blockbuster pairing was heavily littered with intense disputes and backstage turmoil that the general audience rarely glimpses. Originally, the global fanbase heavily anticipated a colossal champion versus champion super fight featuring the current featherweight ruler testing himself against the pound-for-pound sovereign, Islam Makhachev. The confident Spanish Georgian has loudly proclaimed that the Dagestani phenom cowardly abandoned the matchup at the 11th hour, fabricating a convenient ailment to sidestep the legitimate danger heading his way. While the surging knockout artist was fully prepared to ink the contract, elevate his mass, and embrace the massive gamble, the entire arrangement vanished into thin air as if it were entirely fictional. Consequently, the seasoned American brawler is the individual tasked with absorbing the brutal consequences of that highly publicized withdrawal, and the frustrated Kingpin seems remarkably thrilled to violently vent all of his lingering aggravation directly onto his new opponent's skull.
Defensively, Patty would do this like some amateur shit. And I'm surprised.
We all do that.
These are things that when Justin fights Ilia Topuria, it's gonna be different. He's gonna fight a shorter opponent, somebody that could really keep his his freaking hands up, that just understands the finesse of fighting.
We have to realize now, they put together a game plan for the opponent. Justin will make those necessary adjustments, but like you said, Ilia is a different monster, so that will be an intriguing one to prepare for.
The overarching narrative grew significantly more convoluted when the promotional frontman personally intervened to dispel the swirling rumors and aggressively clarify the actual timeline of events. Delivering his message with characteristic bluntness, the organization's president adamantly maintained that the supposed super fight against the Dagestani champion was never formally locked into the company's official ledger. He dismissed the premature international journalism as entirely fabricated, warning the community against accepting unverified internet chatter as gospel truth. Framing his perspective of the chaotic scenario, the head honcho explained that the original lineup completely disintegrated amidst an unrelated slapping broadcast, triggering a desperate scrambling of the matchmaking board that ultimately deposited the veteran American into the marquee attraction. It resulted in an absolute hurricane of late-night bargaining, frantic dialing, and 11th-hour agreements that had the entire martial arts sphere aggressively debating which prominent lightweight was actually sprinting away from a legitimate challenge.
Taking on Ilia Topuria for the undisputed lightweight championship of the world, which is a great fight, which is the fight that should happen because obviously meritocracy and they've got an interim champion. There was people saying that maybe Charles Oliveira or Max Holloway could have gazumped Justin, maybe if they had an insane performance. I'll say this, Charles Oliveira had an insane performance. Wasn't exactly the most nail-biting edge of your seat, although I thought it was extremely dominant. A lot of people are chatting shit online and even calling me a company man because I thought Charles Oliveira was very impressive. Anyway, they don't jump the line, they don't skip the queue, they don't get to fight Ilia Topuria next, and that makes sense anyway because I think I'm going this way. Ilia knocked them both out. Knocked out Charles Oliveira, stopped Max Holloway, didn't put him to sleep per se, but certainly a TKO. So that wouldn't have made sense anyway.
The reigning champion's lead representative, who directly navigated the treacherous matchmaking waters, detailed a wildly contrasting version of the utter insanity transpiring away from the public eye. During subsequent media tours, he disclosed a chilling moment where they were explicitly informed their star client was being entirely scrapped from the historic festival, only for a completely unexpected transmission to abruptly resurrect the campaign. The management firm was presented with a stark binary choice between the pound-for-pound king or the human highlight reel, plunging all parties into an exhausted marathon of legal drafting that stretched well past midnight. The dedicated agent remained tethered to his cellular device until midday, meticulously finalizing every granular stipulation required to cement his athlete's legacy in the sport's definitive history books. It functioned as a staggeringly tense session of high-stakes gambling executed in broad daylight, where the grand jackpot waiting to be claimed was the headlining marquee at the nation's capital and a permanent claim to immortal glory.
Well, if we're gonna go at that, I got Ilia Topuria knocking him out.
Yeah, same here.
I just feel after you've been dropped so much and you're gonna fight somebody who's a deadly striker, great wrestler, who has a chin, who's willing to put himself in the fire to land that shot, and not just the shot to the face. Let's not forget about Ilia Topuria's.
The winding road that eventually placed the fan-favorite challenger into this pivotal contest was equally chaotic and perfectly reflective of the sport's infamously volatile matchmaking process. Mere hours before the promotional machinery publicly broadcast the finalized lineup, company executives sternly informed him that his services would absolutely not be required for this specific historical showcase. He had fully processed the heartbreaking dismissal, internally reconciled the lost opportunity, and pivoted his physical preparation toward future endeavors before another sudden communication miraculously reinserted him into the fold. This bizarre flip-flopping injected an undeniable aura of fate into the impending collision, almost giving the impression that cosmic forces were actively interfering to guarantee their violent meeting. The battle-tested veteran sincerely views this roller coaster as a crucial chapter of his overarching legacy, a divine script mandating he conquer seemingly insurmountable adversity before permanently hanging up the 4-ounce gloves. He harbors absolutely zero fear regarding potential unconsciousness, actively welcoming the terrifying risks as the fundamental ingredient that forged his mythical status within the blood sport.
I'm very proud of myself for losing like that rather than losing by decision. Going one more second and then losing by decision. I fought a terrible fight. I deserved to lose. I wasn't perfect that night. and that knockout is going to make this comeback that much greater. And so I think it's perfect. I think it had to happen. I think it's my story. It's part of my story. I'm trying to write a book, create a movie, create a legacy, and I think that knockout is going to make all this. If I come back and beat Patty, get undisputed gold by beating Topuria, best story you can ever write in this industry.
The tight-knit fraternity of active competitors and seasoned analysts genuinely cannot reach a consensus regarding whether the weathered brawler can summon one final supernatural performance from his heavily depreciated physical vessel. Michael Bisping passionately contends that this specific booking remains the only logically sound direction when strictly adhering to competitive merit and deservedness. Although highly decorated former title holders were heavily floated as potential dance partners, the reigning kingpin has already violently separated both of them from their consciousness in recent outings. Artificially propelling him into rematches against men he recently dismantled would horribly compromise the division's integrity and insult the spirit of the combat arts. The American challenger violently seized his championship opportunity by drowning a murderer's row of opponents in deep waters, and despite the odds makers heavily discounting his chances, he persists as an unparalleled nightmare for anyone bold enough to willingly trade heavy artillery in phone booth range.
I did say before the fight I want the best version of Justin Gaethje, and that Justin Gaethje turned up. So hats off to him. I hope he wins the undisputed title off Ilia. And hopefully we can run it back, even though I don't think he's got too many fights left. Hopefully we can run it back in the future, because there's a couple of things in that fight where that pissed me off. But, you know, we get on with it. It's done now. There's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can go back and change. I just hope that in the future he can step up and have a rematch with me. But it's one of them. I know he's on the arse end of his career, so if he does end up just fighting Ilia and fighting Max or something and retiring, it's one of them. I'll have learned a lot from losing that fight.
Conversely, Paddy Pimblett stands out as an incredibly vocal advocate praying for a massive mathematical upset, desperately keeping his fingers crossed that the gritty veteran achieves the unthinkable. The flamboyant Scouser harbors a creeping intuition that the massive underdog is fully prepared to violently shock the global audience once the cage door locks. Having personally locked horns with the American and absorbed the terrifying kinetic energy he generates, the outspoken prospect acutely understands the terrifying force multiplier that kicks in when the veteran fights for ultimate supremacy. He is heavily invested in seeing the challenger capture the undisputed crown, primarily to orchestrate an incredibly lucrative future rematch that would undoubtedly line both of their pockets with generational wealth. From the Brits' perspective, watching the aging brawler violently shatter the oddsmakers' projections would inject a glorious brand of anarchy into the 155-pound landscape, creating a chaotic environment that massively benefits any surging contender hunting for a golden ticket.
Ilia is one of the greatest of all time. I think he's going to go down as, I mean, he knocked out Alexander Volkanovski, knocked out Max Holloway, knocked out Charles Oliveira, back-to-back-to-back, and knocked out 3 Hall of Famers in a row.
And do you think he would beat Islam Makhachev?
It's definitely possible. Those guys, number 1 and number 2 pound for pound in the world, I think that's the fight we need to see next. It sucks because Islam's probably not going to come back down to 155. Ilia going up to 170 doesn't make, I mean, he's not a huge guy. He's definitely, you know, he could be walking around 185, 190. He's pretty thick. So I think that's the fight that I'd like to see as like the White House made of.
Simultaneously, the reigning title holder is currently radiating a level of self-assurance that practically crosses into the realm of the paranormal, projecting a chilling aura of absolute destiny. He refuses to entertain the mere possibility of tasting defeat. Instead, he operates with the unshakable conviction that he is the terrifying, inescapable evolution of modern mixed martial arts. He is already loudly broadcasting his intentions to aggressively invade the welterweight ranks in pursuit of dual division supremacy, the moment he violently dispatches his current assignment, treating this championship defense as a trivial administrative task. In his calculating mind, the legendary American brawler serves as nothing more than a minor inconvenience, obstructing his path toward joining the immortal pantheon, occupied by the absolute greatest practitioners in combat sports history. This overwhelming psychological armor, which blurs the line between supreme faith and blinding hubris, is precisely what transforms him into such a lethal instrument inside the enclosure. He does not visualize a competent martial artist standing across the canvas. He strictly perceives a helpless sacrifice awaiting its mandatory execution.
and the White House card. There's a lot of reporting out of Spain today saying that it was going to be Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev, and that fight fell apart
That's
on
not
Friday. Well, Justin Gaethje also said like he was told Thursday he wasn't on the card, and then on Friday he was.
That is true.
What happened with Islam, I guess, because you know how fans are, a lot of them.
That's not true, I said.
Sure. So
it was never Islam versus Topuria, yeah.
So anyone who thinks Islam ducked this fight or anything like that,
Yeah.
it's all correct.
Don't worry about what fights are being made. We announce which ones are made and which ones will be happening. I told you there were some weird circumstances. The reason that fight fell out, and it wasn't up on stage with Mick Hunter and Sean. It was that power slap that the fight fell apart that night. That's how Gaethje ended up on the card. And Topuria wasn't originally supposed to be on the card either, so he got the call too.
When can we expect to see Islam Makhachev back?
I don't know. He's got some hand issues. I know that. I don't know how serious the hand issues are or how long that will keep him out, but yeah, he's.
The cultural aftershocks of this impending collision will continue vibrating through the martial arts sphere long after the final blow is dealt, or the official steps in to save a life. Should the reigning kingpin successfully execute his chilling prophecy and forcefully disconnect the challenger's consciousness, it will violently slam the door on a beloved generation of cage fighting. The romanticized era featuring iron-chin savages who constructed massive followings entirely upon their willingness to absorb catastrophic damage will be officially usurped by a terrifying new breed of clinical snipers, merging flawless geometry with ungodly force. The veteran combatant completely comprehends the dire consequences hovering over this matchup, having intimately danced with disaster since his professional inception. He has vehemently reiterated his preference to suffer a devastating highlight reel decapitation while aggressively marching forward, rather than surviving a cautious, heavily calculated chess match. His unwavering commitment to either achieving absolute victory or dying on his proverbial sword is the precise psychological trait that universally cemented him as the most adored gladiator currently lacing up gloves.
We were told that Ilia was not going to be on the card earlier that week, right? Then we get a call that said, hey, if we can make a fight, you can fight Islam or Gaethje. We're focused on getting an Islam fight. So when you hear Dana say, well, that was never a fight, it was because it was talked about, but there was no agreement to fight anybody. So then Wednesday I got asked, would you guys want to do this or that? And we said, absolutely. They gave us a number. We said, absolutely not. And then we didn't hear anything after that, right? I'm sleeping Friday afternoon. So Friday night, early, I went to bed. I'm thinking we're not on the card. It's just not happening. They haven't called me. They're announcing they're going to announce it by Saturday. I say that this shit was crazy. It was like they already said we're going to announce on Saturday the card. 12 midnight, literally 12 midnight till almost 11 o'clock, 11:30 the next morning, right? It was just nonstop negotiating between I'm on the phone with Hunter for an hour and change, and then I'm on the phone with Ilia for an hour and change. So like, all right, so again,
Charles Oliveira, a legendary finisher who intimately understands the terrifying violence both of these men can produce, strongly favors the defending champion to violently retain his crown. The Brazilian submission specialist confidently assesses that the young phenom wields every necessary weapon required to locate a catastrophic finish in the opening 10 minutes of the contest. He pointed out a deeply troubling variable that many analysts neglect. The champion's devastating punching mechanics are securely insulated by elite-level grappling resistance, effectively neutralizing the American's dormant collegiate wrestling credentials as a reliable escape hatch when the striking exchanges turn ugly. Assuming the bout remains a strictly stand-up affair, which everyone heavily anticipates, the sheer velocity differential the title holder commands represents an impossibly steep cliff for the aging veteran to scale. The overall forecast for the beloved brawler looks exceptionally dark when even the most prolific finisher in organizational history is comfortably predicting his violent demise.
Gaethje reacted to his upcoming fight with Ilia Topuria at the White House card with pride and excitement. He described the announcement as an incredible experience and expressed how thrilled he is to be part of such a high-profile event.
A deeply insidious psychological campaign is actively raging just beneath the visible promotional surface, entirely bypassing the casual observer's radar. While the title holder's representation casually insists their client harbors zero desire to verbally degrade or publicly embarrass his adversaries, the champion's calculated rhetoric paints a drastically more sinister picture. By explicitly guaranteeing the challenger will be forcefully rendered unconscious before his brain can even process the sequence, he is actively sowing toxic seeds of hesitation deep within his opponent's psyche. In a ruthless arena where fractional moments dictate survival and instantaneous twitch reflexes determine who remains standing, a momentary flicker of uncertainty easily separates a brilliant defensive maneuver from a catastrophic ambulance ride. The Spanish-Georgian phenom is masterfully executing grandmaster-level psychological warfare while the rest of the roster is fumbling with basic arithmetic, firmly ensuring the battlefield is severely tilted in his direction before the cage door even seals.
Justin Gaethje revealed that he was initially told he wouldn't compete at the White House event, only to later find out that he would be featured on the card. The reversal added to his excitement and made the opportunity feel even more special.
Naturally, the reigning pound-for-pound king has forcefully injected his own voice into the chaotic narrative, aggressively retaliating against the cowardly allegations hurled in his direction. He ruthlessly branded the featherweight ruler a fraud, accusing him of desperately seeking shelter behind aggressive keyboard posturing and heavy-set representation. The Dagestani master escalated the hostility by claiming he would happily compete devoid of any financial compensation, purely to aggressively assert dominance and expose the fraudulent nature of his rival's claims. This intensely bitter digital feud has artificially injected an astronomical amount of external pressure onto the upcoming historic Washington showcase. The defending champion acutely realizes that if he fails to completely obliterate his veteran challenger in jaw-dropping fashion, if the bout devolves into a highly competitive struggle, his lofty declarations of global supremacy will instantly be dismissed as hollow arrogance by the ruthless combat sports community.
Arman Tsarukyan dismissed the fight between Ilia Topuria and Justin Gaethje, calling it a waste of time. Tsarukyan insisted that Gaethje has no real chance and declared that he would be the one to step up and challenge Ilia Topuria for
the catastrophic bodily deterioration the challenger has endured fundamentally cannot be dismissed when dissecting the intricate mechanics of this impending violent collision. Following a grueling professional tenure defined by mythical bloodbaths that will echo through eternity, the human skull simply possesses a finite capacity to absorb extreme trauma before fundamentally fracturing. The core anxiety plaguing the fan base is the terrifying realization that a career spent eating thermonuclear strikes will finally culminate catastrophically against a sniper who targets the jawline with terrifying mathematical exactness. Whenever the fan-favorite gladiator enters the combat zone, he permanently surrenders a fragment of his humanity to the canvas. The prevailing nightmare hovering over the arena revolves around exactly how much resistance remains in his battered chassis. If the champion cleanly connects with the identical ordnance that instantly disconnected Alexander Volkanovski, the resulting imagery might permanently traumatize the loyal audience. As the fateful collision rapidly closes in, the collective anxiety suffocating the sport has reached an unbearable crescendo. The historic national stage will either host the terrifying ascension of an unstoppable global conqueror, or witness the most statistically improbable miracle the division has ever birthed. The beloved American is wandering into the slaughterhouse completely unburdened by expectations, rendering him an exceptionally lethal entity. He desperately yearns to author a cinematic, blood-soaked conclusion to his legendary journey, yet his adversary currently wields the pen and fully intends to draft a grotesque tragedy. At its core, this brutal intersection perfectly encapsulates the current evolution of combat sports, pitting primal, unhinged savagery directly against cold, calculated geometric perfection. If the reigning kingpin actualizes his violent guarantee, the globe will witness a generational terror cementing his reign. But should the grizzled veteran miraculously navigate the fire and detonate his own fight-ending artillery, he will unconditionally immortalize himself as the most terrifying gladiator to ever draw breath. Someone's consciousness is destined to violently abandon their body, and the entire planet will be holding its breath to witness the carnage.